strong support in South China Sea. Chinese Air Force jets briefly crossed over the midline of the Taiwan Strait on Monday as missiles, Taiwan's government said, as United States Health Chief Alex Azar visited the island to offer President Donald Trump's strong support. Mr. Azar arrived in Taiwan on Sunday, August 9 as the highest-level U.S. official to visit in 4 decades, a trip condemned by China which claims the island as its own, further irritating Sino-US relations. China, which had promised unspecified retaliation to Mr. Azar's trip, flew J-11 and J-10 fighter aircraft briefly onto Taiwan's side of the sensitive and narrow strait which separates it from its giant neighbor, at around 9 a.m. local time, shortly before Mr. Azar met Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen, Taiwan's Air Force said. The Chinese aircraft were tracked by land-based Taiwanese anti-aircraft missiles and were driven out by patrolling Taiwanese aircraft, the Air Force said in a statement released by the Defense Ministry. The incursion was only the 3rd time since 2016 that Taiwan has said Chinese jets had crossed the strait's median line. Amid deteriorating relations between Washington and Beijing, the Trump administration has made strengthening its support for the democratic island a priority, and boosted arms sales. Mr. Azar told Ms. Tsai in the presidential office that it's a true honor to be here to convey a message of strong support and friendship from President Trump to Taiwan and standing in front of 2 Taiwanese flags. Washington broke off official ties with Taipei in 1979 in favor of Beijing. Mr. Azar is visiting to strengthen economic and public health cooperation with Taiwan and support Taiwan's international role in fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Taiwan's response to COVID-19 has been among the most successful in the world, and that is a tribute to the open, transparent, democratic nature of Taiwan's society and culture. Taiwan has also been particularly grateful for U.S. support to permit its attendance at the World Health Organization's decision-making body, the World Health Assembly, and to allow it greater access to the organization. Taiwan is not a member of the WHO due to objections by China, which considers it a Chinese province. Meanwhile, key issues surrounding delicate relations between the U.S., China and Taiwan. Why has the United States' highest-level visit to Taiwan in 4 decades sparked such anger from Beijing? Here is a recap of the key issues surrounding the delicate relations between the U.S., China and Taiwan. The deep rift between China and Taiwan dates back to China's Civil War, which erupted in 1927 and pitted forces aligned with the Communist Party of China against the nationalist Kuomintang Army. Eventually defeated by Mao Zedong's Communists, KMT chief Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan, which was still under KMT control. From there, Chiang continued to claim the entirety of China, just as the mainland claimed Taiwan. Taiwan's official name remains the Republic of China, while the mainland is the People's Republic of China. For years, both sides still formally claim to represent all of China, although that landscape has changed in recent decades. Since the late 1990s, Taiwan has transformed from an autocracy into a vibrant democracy and a distinct Taiwanese identity has emerged. The current ruling party, led by President Tsai Ing-wen, regards Taiwan as a de facto sovereign nation, not part of China. The KMT, now in opposition, is more supportive of better ties with Beijing, especially on trade, and maintains the idea that Taiwan is part of China. Washington cut formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan in 1979, switching recognition to Beijing as the sole representative of China, with the mainland becoming a major trading partner. But the U.S. at the same time maintained a decisive, if at times delicate, role in supporting Taiwan. Under a law passed by Congress, the U.S. is required to sell Taiwan military supplies to ensure its self-defense against Beijing's vastly larger armed forces. In recent decades, U.S. presidents have been somewhat reluctant to sell big-ticket items to Taiwan, fearful of incurring Beijing's wrath. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has no such qualms and has approved a string of military sales, including an $8 billion United States dollars (10.9 billion Singapore dollars) fighter jet deal to replace Taiwan's aging fleet. Other side, China warns U.S. against dangerous moves on Taiwan. Chinese Defense Minister Wei Feng warned his U.S. counterpart in a phone call on Thursday, August 6 to avoid firing up bilateral tensions, a day after Washington angered Beijing by announcing it would send a senior official to visit Taiwan. Wei told U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper in a 90-minute phone call to stop erroneous words and deeds and avoid taking dangerous moves that may escalate the situation, referring directly to Taiwan and the South China Sea, the Xinhua news agency reported. But Esper told Wei that China was undertaking destabilizing activity, according to the Pentagon, showing no sign of backing down as the U.S. rejects China's claims of sovereignty. The secretary called for greater PRC transparency on COVID, expressed concerns about PRC destabilizing activity in the vicinity of Taiwan in the South China Sea and called on the PRC to honor international obligations, said Defense Department spokesman Jonathan Hoffman. The call came as the United States steps up a broad diplomatic campaign against Beijing, accusing it of everything from massive human rights violations to attempting to colonize the South China Sea region, to using technology like popular app TikTok to harvest the personal information of hundreds of millions of people worldwide. On Wednesday, Beijing bristled in anger after Washington said it would send Health Secretary Alex Azar to Taiwan, where he will meet with President Tsai Ing-wen and other officials. Azar will be the most senior U.S. cabinet member to visit Taiwan since 1979, which, owing to China's territorial claim on the island, does not have official diplomatic relations with the United States despite their close alliance. Wang Wenbin, a spokesman for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, called for the visit to be cancelled. China firmly opposes official exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan. He urged the U.S. to abide by the One China principle to avoid seriously endangering Sino-US relations, as well as peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. Beijing views Taiwan as its own territory, vowing to one day seize it, and bristles at any moves by other countries to recognize or communicate with Taipei. Tsai, though, called the visit another testament to the strong Taiwan-US partnership, a relationship underscored by extensive defense cooperation and U.S. arms sales. The long call came as Esper says he hopes to visit China before year-end for talks on improving crisis communications, which are increasingly important as U.S. naval forces regularly conduct operations near Taiwan and in the South China Sea, effectively challenging China's territorial claims. According to Hoffman, Esper underscored the need for a constructive, stable and results-oriented defense relationship between the two sides. Esper also raised the issue of China's mishandling of the initial COVID-19 outbreak, as President Donald Trump blames Beijing for the global pandemic that has killed nearly 160,000 Americans. But no agreement was made on a trip, Hoffman said, amid constant worries that some sort of accident could bring the two sides to a clash. The call came as the U.S. and China butt heads on numerous fronts. 2 weeks ago, Washington ordered Beijing to close its consulate in Houston, labeling it a hub of spying and theft of U.S. corporate secrets. In retaliation, China shut the U.S. consulate in Chengdu. And on Wednesday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the United States would seek to ban other Chinese apps and restrict the cloud computing services to Americans by major Chinese companies like Alibaba and Tencent. The U.S. move to turn China into an adversary is a fundamental strategic miscalculation.